Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Into the 99 podcast, where we've got 99 cards, because Commander is number one. I am your Necromancer with all the answers, Necrozach, and joined by my lovely friends and hosts of the podcast, Brian, Ryan, and Dan. Hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
Wonderful.
Zach, I loved this introduction.
I also love it. That's all I'm calling you now, the Necromancer with all the answers. I love it.
I had a list. I spent all of yesterday coming up with ideas because the hostess with the most is very good, but you got to change it up every now and again, you know?
Whenever we get a question to any of our social media, they'll be like, this guy knows.
Hey, you know, whether it's right or wrong, I'm right all the time. So I have all the answers. You can't dispute it. It's a fact.
Hi, guys. This is Zach resurrecting an old topic today.
It's like I like to think of myself as Belzenlock. You know, he wasn't actually an Evancar, but he said he is.
True.
Hey, if you believe it, it's real.
Hey, there's a whole lore episode on that, isn't there, Dan?
There sure is. How's everyone doing this week? Before we jump into our topic, I just want to check in. See, Brian?
Good.
Brian?
Good. I've been off work for almost 2 weeks now.
Good times.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Lots of hobbying.
Building magic decks and building Star Wars miniatures.
That's pretty sweet.
Well, it was the proper week to do it, because we did just pass May the 4th, May the 5th.
That seems fair. How was the week for you, Zach?
It was pretty good. I've stayed pretty busy with work. I've almost completed my Phyrexian box, so I'm very excited about that. I have one deck left.
Yeah, all the new Phyrexian decks you've been going on making. And then Ryan or Brian, how was your week as well?
My week's been pretty good. You know what? I had most of it off. I feel very accomplished, actually. Like, I got a lot done, just like little projects that I wanted to do with content, Patreon, everything along those lines. So, like, it was great to be able to get a lot done. And then I went back to work on the Friday because apparently everybody wanted... No, everybody did. Apparently everybody else decided to take the Friday off, so I couldn't get it. So I was like, well, okay.
I hope everyone listening as well also had a pretty good week. We've got a deck tech for you guys this week. Ryan made... I'll let Ryan say. Ryan, what did you make?
Zaffai the Thunder Conductor. So this kind of was... When Strixhaven and all 5 of the decks were spoiled, I vehemently hated this deck. Not what I built, but I just did not like anything. I was almost not even going to buy it. And then as a group, and I don't remember who all was involved in this, but as a group we were talking about ideas, and a little spark of imagination hit, and I figured out how to build this deck in a way that I would like it. And today we're going to present you with this craziness.
Do you want red-blue is not my color to jam with, but I'm really interested because your deck has like kind of the same premise that one of my newer decks has with Mizzix. So I'm really interested in diving into this one and seeing what hidden secrets and everything along those lines that you got here.
Yeah, so we'll just start it off. The commander is Zaffai the Thunder Conductor. It's 2 colorless, blue-red for a legendary creature, human shaman. And it's a 1/4, and it has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. If that spell's mana value is 5 or greater, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Remember that one. That's important for this deck. And then if that spell's mana value is 10 or greater, Zaffai the Thunder Collector, Conductor, whatever you want to call her, deals 10 damage to an opponent chosen at random. This isn't going to happen too often in this deck.
So it does.
What it does. So I'm going to start with the Planeswalkers. There's 2 of them, and I think they're both kind of integral to what we want to do.
Before we jump into the Planeswalker, I did want to say, you get all of them as it progresses, which does make this way stronger than it seems on its face.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like this.
So you're,
go ahead, sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you get the scry and the token if it's 5 or more CMC. And you also get the 10 damage and the scry and the token for any big spells. So this is, it seems a lot weaker than it is when you're not playing it. But the minute you actually get this on board and start seeing its value, it just goes off. Like, it hits like a truck.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to give you some the deck is capable of some absolutely crazy turns because of this.
I'll be honest, we played the other day, and I think I got shotted for 20. So that's a thing to go into this deck understanding, is that it can hand out at least half your life total in a single turn.
Were you in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen?
Yeah.
Every time.
Okay.
The other thing too, sorry, is just it's cast or copy. Magecraft is so good. I can't get over how good that is.
Yes. Yeah. It and then when you cast it and you copy it, and then the second one, does the second one get the cast trigger as well, or is it?
Yeah, the Magecraft is the cast or the copy. So if you have, like in your artifacts, I see you have Primal Amulet. We'll get to that one after, but it's a copy spell land eventually. So if you just, for some reason, like you Blue Sun Zenith someone for 7, you would do 10 damage twice and scry twice and make 2 it's nuts. Absolutely love it.
All right. So we're going to start with Planeswalkers. There's only 2. Rel Storm Conduit. It's 2 colorless, blue-red, for a legendary Planeswalker with 4 loyalty. And then it has, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Rel deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. It has +2 scry 1, and then -2 when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn. Copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for that copy. This is just going to hit with everything, and hopefully put multiple 4/4, scry multiple times, and multiple crazy effects. Do one of you want to do the next one?
I'm really I don't think I see too many Izzet Planeswalkers, so like I didn't even see this one as like a recommendation when I was looking through cards for mine. It was actually really neat. I like the per spell deal 1 damage, and then you can also it's another quick way to copy a spell. Especially with 4, so you could really try to trigger it twice before someone kills it really quickly.
It's very easy to do. Well, especially if you're casting like a lot of cantrips and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we got Rowan. Was it Scholar of Sparks? Her head's in the way of the letters on here. It's 2 in a red. It's a legendary Planeswalker, Rowan. And, wow, the font on here is super small.
I've got it if you want here, Brian.
Yeah.
It starts at 2. Its instants and sorceries you cast are 1 less, which is a great in any Spellslinger deck. It has a +1. It deals 1 damage to each of your opponents. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, it deals 3 damage to each of those opponents instead. Its -4 is you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can pay 2. If you do, copy it, and you can choose new targets for the copy. So obviously an emblem that is just wonderful in a deck like this. Then the flip side is Will, Scholar of Frost. It's 4 in a blue. It also has that same War of the Spark-esque passive, which is instants and sorceries you control are 1 less. +1, up to 1 target creature has base power toughness 0/2 till end of next turn. Or until your next turn, sorry. -3 is draw 2 cards, which is again pretty good. -7 is exile up to 5 target permanents. For each permanent exile this way, its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental, and it starts at 4. I personally would try -7 people's lands, because I'm a bad person.
So this, obviously the card, it's 2, I don't know if, I guess ultimates or their emblem abilities are a huge bonus, but this is really only in the deck initially to get the lower CMC for instants and sorceries. Everything else is a bonus.
Yeah, at their worst, they just slot into the deck no problem. And at their best, they're nuts.
Yes, they can get pretty bonkers. Next, we'll take the enchantments. So the first one is Braid of Fire. It's a colorless and a red for an enchantment, and it has cumulative upkeep of add 1 red to your mana pool.
That's just a good ad.
Yeah, the only downfall is the deck only runs 10 instances, and not all of them are strictly red based. So there are going to be times where you're just going to be add mana and then rolling out of your upkeep, and the mana just goes away. But there's also going to be times when you really can take advantage of it. Zach, I know you like this next one. You want to take this next one?
Sure. This was when I played Modern. This was a card that I played in Modern. Is Swarm Intelligence. It's 6 and a blue. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So you're just going to be, what I'm assuming is basically doubling up all of your instants and sorcery spells, which is great. You have a lot of really cool things in here we talked about last night. So Swarm Intelligence just gets to be silly. If this resolves, it's probably going to be a bad time for the table, but good time for you.
Yep.
It was just a bad time.
The next one is 1,000-Year Storm, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's 4 colorless, blue-red enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast before this turn, and you may choose new targets for the copies. So you're just going to try to do the same thing. You want to get these on the table, start casting your big splashy spells, and copying them.
Wow. I do have this one, but I just never realized how good it gets if you keep casting spells.
Well, the crazy thing, and half the reason, so like what I want to do with this deck is use Zaffai's ability to put as many 4/4 tokens into play as possible. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're going to cast either Swarm Intelligence or 1,000-Year Storm, cast something that costs 5 or more, and hopefully get multiple 4/4 elementals into play and just overwhelm your opponent. Next, we're going to do... Let's do the instance. Dan, do you want to start us off on the instances?
Sure. Cackling Counterpart is just good in any deck that runs blue. Like, it's just a good card in general. It's 1 double blue for an instant. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and then it has flashback, so you can still do it again. It's just solid. It slots in if you have, especially anything that brings back instant sorceries or just any cool creatures in your deck. Cackling Counterpart basically slots into any blue deck that could need tokens. Love it.
Yeah, this just like you started off. I when I was searching up this card, I typed in Crackling.
Crackling, yeah.
And you'll also get a little later on. There's a kind of a sub theme in this deck of what I want to do, and Cackling Counterpart is going to really expand on this to make it a bit crazier.
All right, I'm excited to see that.
You'll get it when we get to the stuff. But Brian, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite removal cards for like red. It's Chaos Warp. It's 2 and a red. So it's an instant, and the owner of target permanent shuffles it into his or her library, then reveals the top card of his or her library. If it's a permanent card, he or she puts it onto the battlefield. And I love the chaos aspect of this card because it's so funny seeing someone flip the card that was just removed. I've heard a few stories lately of that happening. Actually, Swizzard in our Discord mentioned that he tried to remove a card and they even had the guy shuffle, and then they even cut his deck and it flipped it.
That's funny.
It's super funny.
I've had more than once casting this and in dealing with a problematic creature or enchantment, and they just flip into like an Eldrazi or like an Elesh Nor, just something that just beats the table even worse than what you put into the deck.
With that one, I try to be very cautious of what I'm putting back. I save it for something that is definitely like I to me appears to be like the biggest issue currently. But sometimes I use it on my own stuff. It's fun that way too.
So the next card, Strixhaven gave us some interesting, like, big splashy spells, and this one, it's a fun card to cast. It's Creative Outburst. It's 3 colorless, red or blue, red for an instant. Creative Outburst deals 5 damage to any target, and then look at the top 5 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And you can also play Izzet to discard a Creative Outburst to create a treasure token. Its main ability is extremely powerful. It's expensive, but I've also found more often than not that discarding it to get a treasure token a lot of times It really just helps accelerate you into other game plans.
Do you know what?
The utility of it is so good.
Yeah, like is it or what's the green or sorry the red blue Strixhaven name again?
Prismari.
Yeah, the Prismari is going to introduce like this on more spells. I'd be totally down if this is their form of ramping in their colors.
I love it.
Discard your spell to get a treasure token. Like, to me, that seems like an interesting and a different way of helping out cards that don't typically ramp.
And a lot of times, too, you're going to run into situations, you keep a 3-lander in your opening hand and you don't draw any more land. Well, this is going to help you kind of bridge that gap to get ahead as opposed to being behind. Somebody want to do the next card?
Sure. We have Dig Through Time. CMC of 6 and 2 blue. Delve, which is each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1 colorless. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So, big CMC spell, but if you have enough stuff in your graveyard already, because typically you want to play this later on in the game to try to get ahead, find those finishing cards. So you can exile cards that you can no longer use in your graveyard. So yeah, Dig Through Time. It's just one of those cards that you can make cheaper with your cards from your graveyard. If you can no longer cast them, then use them as a resource to cast another spell. Makes sense.
Also, you cast it much cheaper. It triggers Zaffai, and then there's multiple ways to copy it, which even makes it crazier. The next card is kind of part of the overall theme of the deck, and you'll understand when we get to the creatures. It's Divergent Transformation. It's 6 colorless and a red, and it's an instant, and it has Undaunted. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. Exile 2 creatures. You're hoping to exile 2 tokens. For each of those creatures, its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a creature card, and put those cards onto the battlefield and then shuffle the rest back into his or her library. So when we get to the creatures, you'll understand what we're trying to go get.
Okay.
Dan, I know you love this next card. Do you want to take it? The Expansion Explosion. Again, I just like cards with good utility, so the split is pretty fun. Expansion is an instant, copy target instant with CMC 4 or less. You can choose new targets, and that's for 2. And then Explosion is X, double blue, double red. X damage to any target, then you can draw that many cards.
Yeah.
I just love that card in general. It's one of my... If you have the colors, it's a really good spell to include. The any target, bolt ability, the draw. I love it. Love all of it.
Zach,
utility is really good. That's what you try to find, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even copying some of these bigger splashier spells and then having the copies hit copies because of 1,000-Year Storm and Swarm Intelligence and Ral can get kind of out of hand, which is what we really want to do. Zach, would you like to take the next one?
Yeah, sure. It's Magma Opus. It's 6 blue, red for an instant. Magma Opus deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Then tap 2 permanents, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and draw 2 cards. And you can pay a hybrid blue red. You discard Magma Opus to create a treasure token.
Love it.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Expansion Explosion. Like, it does a ton of different things. It has a lot of utility. Getting to the creatures later, the discarding to make a treasure token is actually really relevant in this deck. So there's just a lot of different uses for this card.
I really love that ability. Like, it would be really nice to see that on more cards going forward. I really like that. That might actually interest me to play blue-red more.
The next card's Opt. Not even gonna really talk on it. It's just a good utility early on to get the cards you want.
I love the old art. Like, it's so such interesting art, especially with that weird thing in the background.
You have to remember though as well in a deck like this, Opt is basically Scry 2. So you scry, you can put it to the bottom, then you can scry again with Zaffai's ability, and then you draw. So it will let you dig pretty good. Early game, it's obviously always good, but with Zaffai out, it is better.
And the nice thing to mention too, with as many copy effects as there are, can be a pretty decent wheelhouse. Like being able just to dig super deep and draw a lot of cards on, off of 1 mana.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It'll let you burn through chaff late in the game or kind of set up your early plays. The next card, it's probably of all the commands, it's my favorite one that they released in the new set. It's Prismari command. It's a colorless blue-red for an instant. Choose 2. Prismari command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token and destroy target artifact.
I love the art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This art's just explosive with color. I would actually want the print of that. Like, this looks great.
I also want to see one in foil.
Yeah. I'm not a huge blue-red fan, but this art makes me want to play these cards.
Yeah, it's very vibrant, right? It's like, I like the neon colors of, like, I guess the partying side of me.
That's fair.
Next card's Rabid Hybridization. It's a blue instant. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. The creature's controller puts a 3/3 frog lizard creature token on the battlefield. Just good removal if there's a problematic creature on the board. Next, we're going to go into the sorceries, and save for a few of these. I'm going to let you guys rip through some of these.
I like to, just looking so far, like instants. When I think of instants, I think of removal. But I guess we're playing on blue and red, and again, I don't normally play those colors, so I'm just like, to me, it doesn't appear like there's a lot, but I know with red you can do a lot of damage, so maybe that's where you're looking at getting your removal at, is by dealing damage to creature and things like that.
A lot of the blue-red instant speed removal are things like the 3 mana and 2 mana burn spells, like Bolt, Incinerate, and all that, and I don't really... Not a huge... I do think that they have a place, but I'm not a huge fan of them typically in Commander. I tend to like things that hit more than one, like that'll deal it to a bunch of creatures. And especially since this deck is not running a lot of creatures, there are times when I have no problem just hitting the board for a ton of damage.
Speaking of which, first sorcery, Blasphemous Act, 8 and a red, deals 13 damage to each creature and it costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield.
That was going to be in there.
That's a lot of damage.
And when you
for a
double
lot
it,
of creatures.
And very rarely do we actually see creatures that are 13 or higher. It happens, but very, very rare.
Next we have...
up? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm excited about this card. That's why I'm getting to it. Brass's Bounty, 6 and a red for a sorcery. For each land you control, create a treasure token. Like I said earlier, the tokens are actually important when Ryan gets to his creatures, but this is just good value in general. You're going to replace the mana that you've spent to cast this spell with treasure tokens while doing what Zaffai wants to do, and more than likely, with how this deck functions, you're going to be able to get an extra copy of this. So, for all you know, the 7 you pay, you end up getting 14 out of.
I like that, actually.
And
all the copies.
I'm never hoping to pay 7. I want to cast this thing for like 4 or 5.
Right.
No, it makes sense. Next up, we talked about this one last week. I feel like Ryan might be almost playing it in the same way, but we got Curse of the Swine. X and 2 blue, exile X target creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller creates a 2/2 green boar creature token. So, I think Dan calls this one of the best removal spells.
In blue, at least. It's mass removal at X.
That's exile?
Yeah, it is pretty solid. Like, blue does not have a lot of good access to getting rid of problem cards, but hitting someone's Avacyn, it's not X of target player. You can get rid of everything problematic on the board sometimes for 5 mana.
That example hit close to home, Dan.
It was meant for you.
This next card is one that it's Elemental Masterpiece. It's 5 blue-red for sorcery. Create 2 4/4 blue and red elemental tokens, and then it has the blue-red hybrid. Discard it to create a treasure token. This is a card that I don't ever want to discard because I really want to try later in the game to cast this. Obviously cheaper than 7, making 4/4s from Zaffai, making 4/4s from it. copying it and making more 4/4s.
I like it. And I have to say the art again, water dolphin looking wolf things with electricity around them.
Water
fantastic.
dolphin wolves, I like it.
It bothers me this next card isn't in the old border, Ryan.
So I do have the old border. When I build decks in Architect, I literally just type the name in and grab the first English version that pops up. I don't pay attention to what.
Or shame.
Shame.
You're cheating our audience out.
Well, take it, Zach.
Yeah.
We have Epic Experiment. It's X blue red for a sorcery. You exile the top X cards of your library. You may cast an instant and sorcery spell. You may cast instant and sorcery spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into your graveyard. I didn't realize they snuck mana value into this on the new printing. I don't like it. Epic Experiment just embodies blue-red. I'm fairly positive that's Ral doing Ral things. So being able to just do stupid, I'm going to pay a ton of mana into this and then cast stuff for free is kind of what you want to see in Commander. It embodies the spirit, I feel like. So makes sense in this deck.
And then we got this next card, which kind of, the names go kind of together. So I find it enjoyable. Experimental Overload. 2 and red and blue sorcery. Create an XX blue and red weird creature token, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Then you may return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand and exile experimental overload. See, this is what happens with your Epic Experiment. You create such a weird creature.
Yes. I was excited to see the weirds come back in M21.
I would like that to kind of become a new creature type. I think that would be interesting.
It is a creature type.
Well, sorry, like a new thing that we see more of.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see that more with this set. Next card we have Expressive Iteration. It's blue and a red for a sorcery. You look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, put one of them on the bottom of your library, and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn. That's a really unique way to, scry.
This card, I've played the deck a couple times, and I've cast this card every time, and I've never been upset.
That's fair.
A lot of times I'll put something into my hand, something useless out of the bottom of my graveyard, but a lot of times I'll put a land into exile and play the land out of exile so that I can keep the random card that's in my hand that I can't cast.
That makes sense.
No, that's what you want. You want, these cards that they come up and you're like, you know what, this has been useful every time. It's not one of those cards you're like, ugh, why? I hate that I drew this.
Dan, take the next one.
Because Dan follows through with these.
Yeah, no, I love this one. I was going to yell something and then I yawned instead. Finale of Promise is X and double red. It's a sorcery. You can cast up to one target instant and or one target sorcery from your grave with CMC X or less without paying their mana cost. If X is 10 or more, you can copy each of them and you choose new targets. It's a really, really good card. I love all of the finale cycle.
Yeah, you might as well hit that next one too then.
Oh yeah, obviously if we're playing that one, we're playing the next one. Finale of Revelation, we've got Nicobolus on the red, Ugin on the blue. It's X double blue for a sorcery. Draw X cards if X is 10 or more. Instead, shuffle your graveyard into your library. Draw X, untap 5 lands. You have no max hand size for the rest of the game, and exile it. With any of your
so much stuff.
Yeah, with any of your copy stuff out, basically if you sink 10 into it and you have your copy, you can untap 10 lands. You draw 10 cards. You draw 20 cards. It's a big spell. It's a real big spell.
Yeah, and then deal 20 points of damage to somebody, make a bunch of 4/4.
Yeah, and to be honest, the point of the finales is they're supposed to be big game-changing cards. So I do love them for that, but yeah, I like the inclusion of both of these. I can never find either of them when I'm shopping.
They're hard to find. I had to source, I think I had to go through 3 or 4 different stores before I could get both of them.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the next one too because I really like the next one. It's Jeska's Will. It's 2 and a red, and if you get this off early, if you get a turn 1 Soul Ring and play this on turn 2, you're going to accelerate so far ahead of everyone. I love this card in general. It's a modal card, choose one. If you control a commander as you cast it, you can choose both. Add a red for each card in target opponent's hand, which is just massive in a lot of games. If you play against me, I love to draw and make tokens. There's a good chance I have 20 cards in hand. Exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you can play them this turn. So if you need to maybe hit a land or something else big, you have all the mana you need, then you can still get that extra utility. But I think most times people are going to cast this, they're going to want that extreme ramp availability.
Yeah, and this card's another card that you can't really find at your local game stores, or at least at ours here.
It's held a ton of value. It's still like a $14 US card.
That's why I already bought them all.
I can't speak for the 4-0 formats, but this card's good in like casual commander. This card is good in the mid powers. This card is a powerhouse in CEDH.
If you get it out turn 1, it is very strong.
This next card... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, speaking of all the mana you would ever need, we have Mana Geyser.
Yeah, this card has salted me greatly in the last few games because I get so many lands and then everyone's like, oh, how many you got there? I'm like, I know what's coming.
I love that for you. So we have Mana Geyser, 3 red, sorcery. Add a red to your mana pool for each tap lane your opponent's control.
Yeah,
I'm easily giving you like 7. They have it.
Yeah, this card is... This card's the truth.
Yeah. And it's so cheap. Like, this... everything about this card's great.
And they're actually pretty easy to find. Like, I've not struggled to find these for... Like, I have them in 2 different decks, and I had no problem getting them. This next card, once again, it's going to kind of hedge into the theme of this deck. It's Mass Polymorph. I can't talk today. Mass Polymorph. It's 5 colorless and a blue for a sorcery. Exile all creatures you control. Then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal that many creature cards. Put all creature cards revealed this way onto the battlefield, and then shuffle the rest of the revealed cards into your library. And you'll understand later why you're going to want to do this.
So let's say, what happens if you play this and you have, 20 creature tokens, and you only have 7 creatures in your deck?
You just go get all 7 creatures, they all go into play, and the rest of your tokens go away. Like, it'll... I don't think it stops trying to resolve, but it hits it until you reveal... You exile... You
would get all of the legal targets, yes, and then it would. You would
reveal your entire library, put all 7 creatures into play, and then you would hit the bottom of your library. There'll be no more legal targets, and then you just shuffle them in.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just curious.
The next card's Mizzium Mortars. It's colorless and a red for sorcery. Mizzium Mortars deals 4 damage to target creature you don't control, and then it has overload of 3 red. And you may cast the spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. Just good removal.
Overload's sweet. It does a lot of fun stuff.
You know what, Zach? I am not seeing... So we had made an addition to this deck last night, and I must have not saved it and removed the card that we removed for it. So I'm just going to... Zach, can you take its Mizzix Mastery? Because I forget exactly the wording on the card.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, give me 1 second.
And I don't remember what we took out for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so Ryan and I worked on this last night, just to kind of clean some things up, and we added Mizzix Mastery. It's 3 and a red for a sorcery. You exile a target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it, and you may cast that copy without paying its mana cost, exile Mizzix Mastery, and then you can overload it for 5 red. So you can either exile a target instant or sorcery for 4 and copy it, or you can overload it and do all the instants and sorceries in your graveyard.
It's amazing.
It's insane.
So just a forward to everybody listening, we'll put a link up for this deck list in the show notes, but you're going to be +1 cards, and I'll try to figure out what that is and remove it.
It'll be a work in progress.
Yes.
So it was rapid hybridization, now that I think about it.
Never mind. It's rapid hybridization.
Don't need it.
Take the next card.
Yeah,
Multiple choice. Oh, go ahead. I'm just excited. My bad.
It's all good. So we got multiple choices, which is X and a blue. If X is 1, scry 1, then draw a card. If X is 2, you may choose a player. They return a creature they control to its owner's hand. If X is 3, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. If X is 4 or more, do all the above. But wouldn't it be all of the below?
Does it actually say all above? Oh,
Yeah.
no, but that all of above is at the bottom. So really, ideally, what you want is you want to hit this. You want to pay 5 because that doesn't say that you can't pay 5. Or sorry, no, you want to pay 4. So then it would be a 5 CMC. So then you'll get the scry 1 off Zaffai, to put a 4/4 into play from Zaffai, then get all of these abilities.
It's not bad at all.
The next card's Polymorph. I think you're probably noticing a theme now. It's 3 colors and a blue for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a creature card. That player puts that card onto the battlefield and then shuffles all other cards revealed this.
I'm curious.
It
Are
is
you hitting your
library.
own? Are you hitting your own creatures to try to search for your creatures? Like
Yes,
that's kind of
which-
my feel for it.
Yeah, you'll understand once we talk about all the creatures in the deck. But there's not a single creature that you don't want in play.
Makes sense.
You guys want to take a couple more of them?
Yeah. So we got Ponder, 1 blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle and draw a card. Good utility. Nice cheap blue card. It usually goes in most decks.
Then we have Preordain, 1 blue, sorcery, scry 2, then draw a card. Pretty good card. It's all, goes in blue quite a bit.
I really
Raven-
like any blue exile spells that we keep getting. Raven Form is the next one. It's 2 and a blue, and it has Foretell, and Foretell's a blast to use. You can foretell it for 1, so exile target artifact or creature, and that's a utility blue generally doesn't have. Hitting artifacts, like red can hit artifacts easy, but artifact and creature still good, and then its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird with flying.
I like it. The exile abilities really, to me, they feel more white and blue, and I like seeing more of them come out because I don't think we have enough of that like locked removal. It's usually all destroy, which I'm so used to playing against Ryan and Zach that I always see the creatures that I blow up again.
Yes.
This next card is we'll save this for a later episode, but this next card is Replication Technique. It's 4 colors and a blue. It has Demonstrate, so when you cast this spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Players may choose new targets for their copies, and then it's create a token that's a copy of target permanent you control. This card is amazing. That's
I like the
all you need
Demonstrate.
to know. So I do too. Demonstrate's so much fun.
Whenever
It's like-
someone casts something with Demonstrate, I always ask, like, hey, are you going to choose me?
Yeah, it's like giving group hug, but not group hug.
I think they're a great political tool in general. The double cast of your own as well, too, is so fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the politics of it. We have Rousing Refrain, which is 3 and 2 red. Add 1 red mana for each card in target opponent's hand until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as the steps and phases end. Exile Rousing Refrain with 3 time counters on it. Suspend 3 for 1 and a red. I like it.
Yeah, I think there's a blue one of this as well, and it's weird because normal suspend, like, you do it and it goes away. This one just keeps suspending itself. You use it, 30 turns later, you get it back.
I do Go ahead, sorry, Zach.
It's just this loop, and it's interesting because we don't see that with suspend cards typically, but this one is going to constantly suspend itself after you use it, which means you're going to be guaranteeing it every 3 turns.
Until you
Unless
die,
someone
yeah.
counters.
Yes, until you die.
I do like that you managed to sneak 38 lands into the deck without thinking I would mention it. Whew.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there is technically 36, but I see what you're saying.
There's not technically 36. There's technically 38.
I don't want to
And
cast
it's too
these
many
as the
lands.
backside ever.
Dan, I tried, and I tried,
Cool.
and it
You'll
just,
never.
I'm so happy that we finally have Zach preaching the word of the low land base.
Lower land base.
Never happen.
Why not run 50? Jeez.
if I'm
Don't tempt me.
if I'm above 3.4, then I do 35. But if I'm anything lower than 3.4, then I keep it at 33 to 34. It just depends.
A little
People are
insight into our
psychopaths.
mind. Yeah. The Bolt lands here. So you have Seagate Restoration. It's 4 triple blue. The front side is draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no max hand size for the rest of the game. And the back side is just the Bolt land of the blue mana. Pay 3 life, it's untapped, or it comes in tapped.
Yeah.
We have Serum Visions. 1 blue. Sorcery. Draw a card. Scry 2.
The next card, Shatter Skull.
The next land?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what? Shatter Skull Smashing. It's X red for a sorcery. Shatter Skull Smashing deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, it deals twice that damage divided as you choose amongst them instead. And then it's got a land on the back that will never play.
I honestly was underwhelmed when they did print this card. I wish it was any target and not just creature.
Yeah. Or I wish it could be like kind of like the fireball. Like you could pay X and it's X as many as you want. So you can pay 10 and deal 1 damage to 10 creatures or...
Yeah, I felt like compared to the other mythic Bolt lands, I felt this was just always the weakest one. It's definitely got good utility, and especially in a deck where you care about big spells and you're getting a token and a scry off it, it's not as feel bad, but I felt it was so weak in comparison.
I feel like if you're going to play Shatter Skull Smashing, you have to have Brash Taunter in the deck to really capitalize off of it. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me
Interesting,
Brash
Zach.
Taunter doesn't make that card better.
Not in this deck, it doesn't.
Apple crap.
The next card is Spell Twine. It's 5 colors and a blue for a sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from its opponent's graveyard. Copy those cards. Cast the copies if able without paying their mana costs. Exile Spell Twine.
I like the colors.
This... I don't think you're ever going to have this be bad, and then if you can get multiple copies of this to get multiple copies, it's going to get kind of silly. The next card is Transmortify. It's 3 colors and a red, sorcery, exile target creature. That creature's controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. That player puts that card onto the battlefield, then shuffles the rest back into their library. Somebody take that last card.
Treasure Cruise, a card I've never played in a single deck. It's 7 and
Really?
a blue for sorcery. I just can't stand that as a card. I delve differently. Treasure Cruise is 7 and a blue. It has delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting is 1 less, and it's draw 3 cards. It can be draw 3 cards for 1, but I don't know. It's not for me. It's not the draw spell for Daniel, but I understand with Zaffai, it at least functions in doing what you need it to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna touch on a couple of the artifacts in the deck, but a lot of it is just 2 mana rocks.
Yeah, let me quickly whip through your ramp. We have Arcane Signet. We have Felwar Stone, Fire Diamond, Izzet Signet, Mind Stone, Root. No, I'll skip those ones. Sky Diamond, Soul Ring, Thought Vessel for no max hand size, and Talisman of Creativity. So we've got a lot of the good ones out of the way. Ryan, take it away.
My question is, we got all of this extra land ramp, or all this extra ramp. Well, we still got 36 lands.
38?
lands.
Because you want to cast 8 to 10 mana X spells, Brian. And unlike you guys, I am not lucky. So if I run 33 land, I'll be stuck on 3 land.
You're wild.
And I'll use all of my turns casting mana rocks and not playing spells. The first one is Elementalist's Palette. It's 3 colorless artifact. When you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, put 2 charge counters on it. Tap to add 1 mana of any color, or tap to add a colorless for each charge counter on Elementalist's Palette, and spend this mana only to cast spells with X. Somebody want to take the next one? Zach, I know you love this card.
Yep, I'm taking it. Helm of the Host. 4 for a legendary artifact equipment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature except the tokens isn't legendary. If the equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste you equip for 5.
So you're going to play this. You're going to put it on your commander. You're going to go into combat. You're going to make a token, and you're going to leave combat.
I feel like that's something I said last night to you.
100%. Because I actually was like, why would you play this card? You got to attack. And Zach's like, no, you don't. You just go to your combat step. And I was like,
yeah, which you already have to do. The next one's one of my favorite cards. I did want to talk about that because I know you guys are going to go on about this Helm of the Host thing shortly. It's a theme. I get it. Primal Amulet is 4 for an artifact. Probably my favorite artifact in the game. Instants and sorceries are 1 less. Is a great on its face card. Whenever you cast instant or sorcery, put a charge counter on it. Then if there's 4 or more on it, you can remove them and transform it. And it flips to Primal Wellspring. Taps for 1 mana of any color. And when you use it for an instant or sorcery, you get a copy. I cannot find enough of these cards. I love them.
So you're who I have to talk to get a copy of this.
It's
one of those ones I just take from the case every time I see it.
This is one of those cards too that I've very, very I've had crisis in the middle of playing because it's like, do I want to flip it or not? And I feel like that's for a modal card or modal dual face card. I think that's a mark of it being a very powerful card. Is, man, do I actually want to flip it or do I want to leave it where it's at? Because both sides are insanely good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think with this deck, it just depends on what point of the game. Like, once you've kind of amassed all of your mana, it's the mana reduction's not as important.
Mm-hmm.
But the back becomes so much more important.
But I'm also greedy, so...
That's fair.
I love it at every point of the game, to be honest. Primal Amulet's so good. That and Azor's Gateway. Azor's Gateway is another card I love to play.
Yeah, it's fair.
We should talk Azor's Gateway one day. Just a whole episode of why I like that card. Why the Ixalan modal cards are so fun to play. The next one on your list is Pyromancer's Goggles. It's 5 for a legendary artifact. Taps to add a red when it's spent for a red instant or sorcery spell copy, and you can choose new targets.
I got to play this once with my new deck. It was great.
The Mizzix?
Yeah.
It's a cool card. I like it.
Okay. Now we're going to go into the meat and potatoes of this deck.
You skipped one other part. You have Ruby Medallion and Sapphire Medallion, which are just, more cost reduction.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to go into the meat and potatoes of this deck. So there's 7 creatures in this deck. And this is why there's all the polymorph effects, because you want all of these cards in play as fast as you can get them into play. The first one is Baral, Chief of Compliance. It's a colorless and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature human wizard that has instants and sorceries cost 1 less. It also has whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do discard a card, there's no counter magic. You don't care about this. You just want the spell reduction.
This is my card.
Yeah, take this next one because you're the reason it's in the deck.
So as I hinted to earlier, the token copies of anything that you can make in this deck is important, and this creature makes them important. It's Brutaclad, Telcor Engineer. It's 4 blue and a red for a legendary creature, Artificer 4/4. Creature tokens you control have base, which is relevant. We like being able to swing as soon as possible. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token.
Pretty solid overall. I love Brutaclad.
Yeah, there's your treasures into 4/4 elementals.
Or if you get a token copy of your commander that's not legendary, you can copy her and just cast that big spell and be like, everybody take 5, 50 damage apiece.
I'm doing 400 damage at random. Let's roll dice.
I love Brutaclad. I do not like Izzet typically on its own, but Brutaclad is the one commander I will always praise because I just think it's so unique and it's awesome. And in this deck, being able to make tokens already, you're going to have some value, whether it's you're making 1 treasure token and then suddenly you've made 4 4/4s. Well, now you can turn those 4/4s into treasure tokens if you feel like it, or like the guy said, just make 20 zappies and just roll the table. This card is just good.
Brutaclad's unique in the color scheme, and like you said, it's fun to see things that do something different, and to be able to work a token sub-theme generator into your Izzet Spellslinger deck is pretty cool.
Yeah, when Zach told me to put this card, I was like, this card's like, it's not that good. And then I read the card, and I was still like, why do I want to make more 2/1 mirrors? And he's like, read the card. And then I read it, I was like, oh, all my treasures become 4/4s? All my 2/1 mirrors become 4/4s? And then he's like, and they have haste. And I'm like, okay, it's going in.
Zoom, yeah.
Yes.
You have more spell reduction, yeah. Yeah,
next card's Gobble Electromancer, blue-red, creature, goblin, wizard, 2/2, instants and sorceries cost 1 less. This next card has become near and dear to Brian's heart.
Yeah,
Brian, why don't you take this one?
We got Mizzix of the Ismagnus. It's 2 and red and a blue. It is a legendary creature, goblin wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost or mana value, greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each experience counter you have, which I ended up facing this guy in our pre-con league, and I was not prepared for the nonsense that was going to ensue. Because, you know what, like, I understand the cost reduction, but when it came to X costing spells, I did not know that interaction. So you can be like, I am casting this for 8. I have 4 experience counters. I just have to pay 4 mana. And then it goes off for 8. And I was just like, wow, I had no idea. A learning experience for me. I slapped that together within a day, and it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten 2 games in it. I've gotten to see some things, but I'm super excited for it. And yeah, Ryan played the Zaffai deck and played this guy and had this guy out for a majority of the game. I was like, you're playing my commander better than I am.
Like I had him out with 8 experience counters on it. Everything in my deck just cost their base colorless spell.
That's pretty solid.
It was pretty fun.
Mizzix
Zach,
is a great
why
card.
don't you? I think your face is on this next card. If you want to,
Yes,
take
I'm
it.
reading this one and the next one. You guys can deal with it.
Zakashima.
Yes, it's Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. Easily the best blue card ever printed. Zakashima.
There we go.
It's 3 and a blue for legendary creature, human rogue, 3/1. You may have Zakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Zakashima of 1,000 Faces' other abilities. The legend rule does not apply to permanents you control, and it has partner.
It's a good card.
All you want this card to do is copy Zaffai. That's it. Or, I mean, Brutaclad might be silly, but you want it to copy Zaffai.
Ooh, Brutaclad's sick. Then you get 2.
Mega
mirrors.
Brutaclads would be fun.
The less experienced version of Zakashima is Sakashima, the Imposter. It's 2 blue, legendary creature, human rogue, 3/1. As Sakashima the Imposter comes into play, you may choose a creature in play. If you do, Sakashima comes into play as a copy of that creature, except its name is still Sakashima the Imposter. It's still legendary, and it gains 2 blue. Return Sakashima the Imposter to its owner's hand at the end of the turn.
Is this basically like your high school like photo? Like, is this when
Yes.
is this when you started off impersonating people?
That's actually why I got bullied a lot in school, was because I wore those masks and those chains, and
Yeah,
it just wasn't a really good look for me at the time. But I was trying to grow into myself, you know.
You're finding out who you are. I get it.
Yeah.
And once again, you want this to come into play and copy Zaffai.
Brutaclad.
We're not playing that deck, Zach.
I'm pretty sure we're playing that deck.
I mean, you could play that deck.
Yes.
I 100% hijacked this. It's Brutaclad now.
The next card is Spark Double. It's 3 colors and a blue for an illusion. You may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of Zaffai or another creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature. It enters with an additional loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary.
All right. Let me ask you guys this right now. With you knowing me as well as you do, who do you think suggested to Ryan these last 3 cards?
Well, hold on. You can go with the last card, but Sakashima of 1,000 Faces and Sakashima the Imposter were in the alpha version of this deck.
Because you learned best from me.
We should start a Zach puts Sakashima in the deck jar. Zach, the deck's mono white. It needs the card.
It does need the card. Dude, I'm pretty sure I have a very, very heavy investment in Sakashimas because I have quite a few in some decks behind me.
I can't speak for where you guys are at, but Sakashima is not an easy card to find in my parts.
It is not. If we get them in at the shop, especially the Etch version, they just kind of hold them for me.
They're a really solid card, to be honest.
Zach, put it in the showcase.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's bad in any deck it goes in.
No. It's what I like about Commander, right? Like, that's what... Ryan, were you... Well, I guess we can save this for later. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll get into that over on the
What is
Patreon
later,
side
I
of things,
guess.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to say, Sakashima is actually what makes me so angry about Orvar, because they should have given Orvar partner as well. I understand why Orvar doesn't have partner. Like, I have a soul, I get it. But at the same time, like...
Do you?
Sakashima's so good that... Yeah, I played Sakashima the last time I had Orvar. It was great. I had so many Orvars. But the problem is, like... Sakashima sets such a high bar for what things with partner could be, and then they're like, and here's also Orvar. He doesn't have it. So it doesn't have it. Whatever tentacle monster Orvar is.
It's a changeling.
And this is where you hear Dan go, do you know what? I'm just going to play it that way anyways.
You should. I think people should just play Orvar with partner, but I guarantee I'd be furious the first time someone comes at me with some Simic nonsense Orvar. Lose my mind. Hey, this is my Kodama Orvar deck.
Speaking of partners with that,
I saw your face light up with that Zach. You're like, that would be fun.
I don't play Simic that often. It's typically Sultai.
Huh?
But I do have a partner pairing that I am working on that doesn't have partner, and I think that's going to be a fun episode.
I do like that. I do like secret partners. Well, let's basically, this is where the Prismari deck is. Let us know how you would have built it. We're going to jump over on Patreon, get a little farther into the deck and everything. So, Ryan, and any other closing thoughts quickly, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for watching the Brutaclad deck test.
Yeah, thank you for watching Brutaclad.
Just one takeaway real quick. The cost of this deck is a little deceptive, as I don't have the entire mana base into the deck.
And you didn't select the proper copies?
You don't have the entire... How many more lands can you put in here, old man?
So just keep in mind when you do build the deck, that
Brian,
the value might be a little higher.
We forgot to mention, I got to talk about this. Mirror Pool.
Oh, yeah, it is legit.
So when I was helping Ryan last night, he was... we were talking, it's like, oh, you have to add Mirror Pool. You didn't know what it did. So for you guys at home, if you don't know what it does, it's a land and it enters the battlefield tap. That's awful. But it taps for a colorless, still bad. But two in a colorless, you can tap and sack it to copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's good. What's better? 4 in a colorless, tap it, sacrifice Mirror Pool, put a token that's a copy onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature you control. Put a token.
I do like the token generation on a land. I do love Mirror Pool. I think people are going to start playing a little more because it is such a cool card.
It's very underrated, and it bothers me because it is a very strong land, especially just being in 2 colors. You can get away with a land coming into play tapped and being colorless much easier. And even if you couldn't, like, the ceiling on the card, I feel like is very high.
Well,
I just want to talk about that.
When you have 51 lands in a deck like Ryan, like, you can pretty easily never miss your land drops.
That's
you run so many lands, right? It's crazy. I run landfall decks with not this many lands.
Brian saw this happen the game that we played the first time I took this deck out for a test run.
No lands.
The mana base did not change, and I think I was stuck on 3 lands for a while. I was discarding those spells that let me get treasure tokens to try to get ahead. And it wasn't until I had four land and a treasure token that I could cast Mana Geyser, and I was able to double it, so I got 30 mana. and then was able to draw a ton of cards and get ahead.
There you go. It got there eventually.
But-
Yeah, like on turn 27.
It is.
But,
It is a lot of lands.
Like Dan said, if you want to join us over on the Patreon side of things, we're going to continue the conversation on this deck. Brian, do you want to
Let everyone
close us
know where
out?
let everyone know where they
Yeah.
can find our stuff.
Things and
Wow.
stuff.
As always, you're clearly listening to us right now on Into the 99 on one of the podcast platforms. But if you're looking for other great content created by Zach, Lotus, and Benson, and anything else that's new, the best place to find us is intothE99.com. Also, the Pre-Con League is still open if you want to join in, see what you could do until the end, and win some really nice prizes. Check it out, reach out to us, register on the website. You can always find Lotus doing her Brewing It Live with Han Sundays, I believe, moving to Saturdays within the coming weeks. And that's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And Zach and Benson Brewing It, or sorry, no, I always do this.
Yeah, you do.
Parallel Thoughts. You can find their episodes on our YouTube channel as well. If you're joining us over on the other Patreon side, you can find it on their early access along with any other videos we do. And with that, see ya.
Bye, everyone.
Later. Have a wonderful weekend. And
Be
week.
safe.